Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Icon International Photography Awards critique sessions here at WPPI. I'm very excited to be hosting this morning. I'm Michelle Celantano, and I have with us today Andrew Hiorth and Rachel Owen, fantastic photographers who are going to be going through the critiques that you're going to be seeing today. We're going to be talking about the creative portrait category. Creative category means that it can be composited. So anything goes in this particular category for the portrait category. And Rachel, would you like to say a few words and introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Rachel Owen. I'm a photographer in Chicago. I work with my husband. I've been photographing for 20 years now. And mostly in the industry, I am known for green screen photography and composites.
Oh, we have to talk. All right. Andrew.
Hi, good morning. My name's Andrew Hiorth, Icon's newest master.
That's right.
Yeah, very cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Truly an honor. My background is in 12 years of photography, and I run a studio in Toronto, and we focus on boudoir exclusively as a niche.
Yes. So before we get started, I would like to thank B&H for their sponsorship of this recording and these critiques. Also, Critiq. It's a fantastic app that Icon Awards used for those who asked for critiques. The judges were able to go into this app and you were able to see the judges as they were critiquing your images, and we could circle and we could zoom in. And so it's a fantastic app for really learning and for getting very good feedback with, real good direction. So thank you to B&H and Critiq. And you guys will get started. If you want to go ahead and hit the next button on your laptop, you'll see the first image up. And Rachel, I'll have you get started.
I absolutely love the color harmony in this image. The blues and the greens, and it just gives you a very surreal, whimsical feeling. I think what might have kept this image out of getting into the silver range is the some of the highlights. So this is one of those things you can always turn an image upside down and see where your eye goes to first. And my eye keeps going back and forth between her face, which is beautifully lit, but then I go up to those highlights in the mountains, and it kind of takes my eye away from the dreaminess of this scene. Also, those clouds reflected underneath. So I think that would help the maker improve a lot, maybe a different crop, or possibly this is a creative category. So they could posted some clouds or some things that would give us more story.
Awesome. Thank you. Andrew, some follow up?
Yeah, and just to mirror what Rachel said is just when your eye is drawn to the brightest part of the image, it really distracts you from the main element, the main subject. So just keep an eye on that for next time. And otherwise, good concept. Well done. I love this kind of Swan Lake sort of vibe.
Yeah, thank you. Rachel, it's funny that you said about turning the image upside down because I said that yesterday, and it's one of the tips given to me way long ago when you're considering prints for competition to actually turn it upside down and see where the eye goes. And so that is such a great piece of advice for all of you guys watching at home. When you're thinking about entering an image, that should be one of the first things you do. Turn it upside down, see where your eye goes. All right, go ahead and click.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah, of course you can add anything.
As I'm looking at this closer, I noticed that her back arm is kind of there just a little bit, but not quite. And you can break the rules in posing, but if you're going to do something like that, you have to show the judges that you intentionally left that little bit of arm in there. So either taking it out or leaving it in, making us know that that was an intentional move.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you. Go ahead and go to your next image. This is super interesting. I can't wait to hear what you think about this. Andrew, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, this is such a unique idea. I love the harmony and the color patterns, and the takeaway for me here is just really kind of the white balance in the skin tones. I think if we just focused a little bit on managing the skin tones a little bit better in each subject, so that they're more uniform and maybe a little bit warmer because this is more of a hard light, I think that would have brought that up quite a bit.
Rachel, talk to me about how you feel the image maker is trying to tell a story here with the subject being, normally photographed, but then this really interesting shadow behind.
Yeah, it's very visually striking. When you see this, you immediately want to look at it close. And that might be one of the areas that is keeping this out of being in the silver range. I'm not quite sure about the story. Like, I see these two different expressions. And then I have all kinds of questions like, is this a family? Is this something that somebody created for a business? And is it two different sides of their personality? I think that's what the author was trying to go for. But I feel like a little bit more, this is one of those that's a little bit hard to get into. It's hard to get into the faces and really understand, understand the expressions.
It's almost like an alter ego.
An alter ego, yeah.
Do you think that this very narrow, straight, vertical down the center of, larger image is hurting it because we can't see the expressions? Do you think, like, for example, if it had been side by side and maybe three on, three on the top, three in the middle, like more of like that Brady Bunch look, would that have helped draw you in a little bit more? Is it just the crop or the way that these images are constructed in the frame?
So I think that's an interesting perspective. It could potentially have given us more insight into the expressions, but the challenge I think the maker would have had was the color harmony then,
Right.
and how to stagger that. But maybe even considering, and again, this could have been a family, so but odd numbers are also very more powerful. If we just had one of these out of the frame and just have kind of even five, rules of odds,
Right,
one,
yeah.
3, 5. I think that might also be something that would have been stronger.
That's a great comment. Thank you so much. All right, we'll go to the next image. Oh, Rachel, I feel like you need to start on this, girl. I think this is right up your alley.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say. I love the kind of dark gothicness paired with the light and almost whimsy. That juxtaposition is done really well in this image, and that is hard to do something so dark and eerie and give it a lightness that this has. And I really enjoy the painterly tones that the maker has chosen here. As I get into it a little bit closer, I feel like the expression is what's lacking here. I can tell that she has an emotion, there is a mood to this, but then when I look at her face, I'm not seeing that expression is matching everything else that I'm seeing here. Also, possibly some little posing things. And the painterly tones, when you get in here real close, it's not quite consistent with the amount of painting and the amount of brush strokes used throughout the whole image.
Awesome. Thank you. Andrew, some thoughts for the maker?
Yeah, for me, it's just a little bit of the blending on the left side here, where it just kind of gets lost in between the foreground and the background, and I think that kind of takes away from the 3D element of the subject standing out from the background.
Awesome. I'm going to let you guys go to the next image. And for those of you watching, this is a reminder that these are images that scored 79 or below in print competition, and our Critiq judges panel here are talking about how these images can be brought up and possibly and be improved so that they can make it to the silver category. So this is just a great educational opportunity to hear how those images go from that 78, 79 into that 80 category. So let's talk about this next image. Andrew, would you like to get started?
Oh, this really hits home. I makes me miss my little guy. He passed away a while ago, and I really commend the maker on creating such a beautiful concept. When you're working with silhouettes, you need to make sure that you really accentuate, posture and figure and posing, because it's easy for silhouettes in a human form to get lost and become kind of blobbish. They've done an okay job here. I think what would have brought it up is to just see a little bit more separation in the limbs, so you can really just get more action and separation in the form. And I think that's the only thing that blocks it up here.
Yeah, I think that's a great comment.
Yeah, there's definitely impact with the color. When this image initially turned around, my eye doesn't know where to go, and I feel like this is so close to being something that could give us a lot of feeling, especially in silhouettes. Anything that, because this is a creative category and you can change anything, I see little bits of hair and little areas where my eye keeps stopping. I also think that if the maker wanted to improve this, because it is a creative category and you can do as much compositing as you'd like, giving us a different cloud structure and putting the darkness of the silhouette behind different lightnesses of the clouds could really cause our eye to move around this image and stay in the story.
I love that comment. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Let's go on to the next image. And just quick reminder for those at home, this is the portrait creative category. And the creative category allows the maker to composite and add lots of other elements to the image. They all must be photographed by the maker, so they can't be stock. They can't be stock elements. So everything has to be created by the maker. So let's get some thoughts on this image.
This maker is really skilled with the color palette. I'm really enjoying the tonal work that was done in here, and knowing that this is very likely a composite, I can't really tell that it's a composite, which is very commendable. As far as the storytelling goes, when you're doing something for competition, this isn't in an art gallery where people can sit and look at it for 10 minutes. We have to make the story a little bit more obvious for the judges. It does look like there's two people and they've got parallel lives, like they're connected in some way, but I'm not exactly sure. And also, with this being so advanced in the color, I feel like a little complementary color, possibly some reds in here, would really bring our eyes to certain places and help highlight the story for us more.
Awesome. Andrew?
I think Rachel's covered it. To be honest, that was my biggest takeaway, was just the lack of understanding the story that was being told.
I think it's just fun to see a phone booth with wired phones. Like, they don't really, it's been years since I've seen that. So I always find that really interesting. And, where the maker potentially found the phone booth is pretty just interesting to me.
Yep.
So awesome. Let's go to the next.
I will
Yep.
give the maker one point here, that this has such a very nice cinematic look. And I think, like Rachel said, they've really mastered that color palette. And if we can just refine the story a little bit, this would be really, really impactful.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Our next image. Rachel, I'll hand it to you first.
I will commend the maker on the compositing in here. The background and the subject in the castle, all the horizon lines do line up, which is correct. There are a few refinements here in cropping. We would like to, so this looks like such a soft and whimsical image. And anytime you cut things off, it naturally gives us a bit of a tension feeling. And I don't feel like that coexists with the story, the peaceful pose and expression on her face. And also a bit with the pose work. Anytime you have a 90-degree angle in the elbow, our eyes are going to go right there and we kind of get stuck. So I feel like this is so close, but a bit refinement in the posing, some of the highlights on the dress would really help take this to the next level.
Andrew?
Yeah, I think Rachel hit on the head. For me, it's just a little bit of the blending in the sky, and it looks a little bit kind of artifact, so it's not cohesive.
Can you
And
just for the sake of people watching at home, what do you mean when you say artifacts?
Well,
Not everybody knows what that means.
it looks, it's not cohesive with the rest of the scene. It looks almost a little bit, like it's got, it's almost a little pixelated.
Okay.
Like the resolution wasn't, matched to the rest of the image.
Okay.
Also with, when you have the ability to almost do anything with this, I mean, looking at the security cameras and the lamps in the tree and stuff like that, refining those small details can really just bring this up a little bit and bring us more into the story, instead of and making it more timeless, as opposed to us saying, oh, security camera technology, this isn't timeless, it's kind of recent.
Awesome. Yeah, for me, I want to see the bottom of that dress. I want
Yes.
to know where that,
Yeah.
that's the first thing for me. I was like, where's the rest of that dress?
Yeah.
So, but overall, the color palette is so beautiful.
Yeah.
So perfect. Thank you, guys. We'll go on to the next image. Wow. Wow. So, yeah, this is a really fun abstract image, right?
That's really powerful. I mean, I can sense the power and the spirit of the animal, and which is obviously a horse to me. I wow, it takes a minute to really look at.
Yeah.
What takes it away from me is some of the harsh, strokes coming through that kind of create these distracting highlights. And I'm not sure if that was meant to emulate a a brush stroke or a paper type, but it takes me away from the action a little bit.
Yeah. Rachel?
I appreciate the abstractness of this image, and I did get horse too, although I wasn't sure. So I think that's commendable for the maker that we can see the same shapes out of here. I feel like if you're going to do an abstract image, you really have to do a study in composition and getting the viewer's eye to move around the page. I would recommend for this maker, if they wanted to continue with the abstracts, which I would encourage them to do because this is beautiful. There are some compositional grids, and studying compositional grids and just composition and see, like, test it out on different people and see where each person's eyes go first. And if you can control where their eye is going around the image.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's some color shifts in here that could be handled in post as well that could be a little distracting? And maybe it's just
Yeah,
my
it's not
my
a
screen.
true black and white.
Right.
And that's one of those, like, if you're gonna leave it in, you have to show the judges that you intentionally left it in and it
Right.
wasn't a mistake.
Yeah, because I'm seeing some like red tones in the center or like some magentas, and that's actually distracting my eye from the beautiful depth of the blacks in there. So, but yeah, I love the movement. Like, such a like you want to look more at it. So for something like this, just to hone in on those little details that could really bring this up is so important. Thank you. That's awesome. Our next image.
This kind of reminds me a little bit of fine art meets pop art. So I really commend the maker for blending two kind of historic categories. The highlights for me are where you kind of take away again when you're looking at your image. Like Rachel said, you can flip it upside down and see where your eye goes. I even just kind of do a little bit of a squint until I can barely see light, and
Yeah.
your eye is drawn right to the highlights in the bubble gum, the hair. I really enjoy this image overall, but and also maybe the saturation could be handled a little bit better, to even out that color toning and tonality throughout the image overall. I think we're just a little up on the vibrancy here.
Rachel, your thoughts?
I adore this image. I absolutely love the whimsy. The pose is on point. And even her expression, she's got kind of this blasé look at the camera. And the bubble gum is brilliant. And I think the reason that this didn't go up to an 80 would be, as Andrew said, the color palette. And it's all equally saturated. If it were desaturated in some areas and maybe just the bubble gum would be brighter, that's something the maker could play with to cause our eye to move to different places. Also, I'll speak to the wig, as fun and whimsical as it is just cutting off her eyebrow, and that gives me a sense of tension, which I don't feel like was intentional with this. And I feel like the maker possibly missed a few extra points, and you've got these beautiful cloud shapes and you've got the roundness of the bubble gum. So the wig could have been round to match the bubble gum or more cloud-like in the shapes. So little things like repeating shapes, especially in a creative category, can really take an image to the next level. And I feel like those are the little things you can't quite tell why you love it, but yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that too, like taking some of that texture and highlight and shadow from the clouds to create that wig would tie that all together. So the wig is a little bright and drawing your eye away from her. So that's some really good commentary on there. So just a quick reminder, I just want to thank B&H and Critiq for sponsoring the icon critiques here at WPPI. And we're going to go to our next image. So we're here with Andrew and Rachel, and we're talking about images in the portrait creative category that scored 79 or below. And our esteemed judges here are talking about how these images can be improved upon and how the maker can increase their technique to get to the next level in that silver category. So Rachel?
This image definitely has impact, and I will applaud the maker for the use of the red with her skin tone. Brings my eye right to her face and then to her belly second, which I think was absolutely intentional. I think if the maker wanted to improve this, the expression, when I look at that, I'm not quite sure how she's feeling. And it doesn't have that piercing gaze that just draws me in and tells me who this woman is. And then I also think some refinements of the posing. The posing has to be purposeful. And I feel like the purpose here was to cover her up. And I'm not sure that covering up with this outfit and this entire image is what the maker wanted to say. I feel like you could still cover her up with different types of posing that would have more impact and help us with the story more.
Andrew?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to comment on, was just a little bit of refinement in the posing. When you're photographing a subject, they're typically, when they're straight on, they're going to be at their widest. And with these types of portraits being maternity or of high fashion, you want to give it some curve and shape. So just a little bit of refinement and bending that knee a little bit, maybe twisting the hips a touch, just to give us a little bit more curve in her hip and midsection area. Hands is probably one of the biggest things that I want to call to.
Yes.
When we're photographing the backs of the hands with a female form, it's when you show the back of the hand, it's typically more seen as a masculine type of pose, where when you want to refine it, you just got to twist it so you're showing kind of the side of the hand. It also gives you something to do with the fingers, and it makes it a little bit more refined and elegant, and it just adds to the shape and beauty of the female form. So keep that in mind for the maker, for when you're working with hands, and for anybody. I mean, just keep an eye on those hands, because as you look through the history of fine art, that was the biggest thing that they focused on,
Yeah.
to refine beautiful portraits.
Yeah, for sure. Um, let's just take a minute to also talk about the overall lighting, because I feel like the lighting is so even throughout. And if the maker really played with a little bit more light control, for example, lighting the face a little bit more intently and then having a little bit more fall off towards the bottom of the image, it would really help draw your attention to her face and her belly. So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in an image like this, and being pregnant is such a feminine thing, and women have curves, and this lighting is so straight on. When you light from the side, it gives you those shadows that would help round out her belly and give us more of that feminine female form. And also, I enjoy the skirt and the bottom of the image, but it doesn't add anything to the story. If you kind of put your hand over there, we've got the circles on top and then the straight line of the legs. But the bottom of the image isn't adding to the story in any way. So that's another, I heard someone say this week, crop it until it wins. So,
Yeah. I mean, you can see like the deep vignetting on the sides, but it doesn't translate down to the fabric. And so the fabric almost becomes a distraction. So even just toning down that fabric equal to what the maker was trying to do on the sides of that image would really go a long way. So
Yeah.
just, I feel like, we can really hone in on lighting here and use a grid on her face just to highlight that face, and then have that fill light really fall off so that it's not quite so flat.
yeah.
And that would really help a lot. So anyway, that's just my thought.
Absolutely. And a portrait creative, I feel like judges want to see everything because you could.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And I think especially in this category, when it's a portrait creative and you have the ultimate control to do anything you can imagine on this image, you can make perfection happen. So so that's kind of one of the fun things about this category. Yesterday we did in-camera artistry, and that's a whole different way to think, because there's not, you can't say, well, you could tone down these highlights. Well, you can't. You can change your exposure, but you can't. So here we want to see, like, you can do anything. So all right, let's go to the next image. Oh my gosh, I don't have boys, but I imagine if I had a boy, this would be what it would be like. Like this kind of crazy game, toys. Wow, that's a fun image.
Yeah, I have a boy.
Yeah.
And I can attest, boys are hard to photograph. There are so many things out there for girls, and
Right.
like cropping and everything, that
Yeah.
this person has nailed boys at this age for sure. I absolutely appreciate the whimsy and the storytelling in this image, and I would encourage this maker to keep going, because this storytelling is really on point. And there are a couple of little things that I think didn't bring it into the 80s. I'm going to talk to the cropping of the stool on the bottom. And that stool is quite large and a bit distracting. You know, I see his face and I see the color up there. And then my eye goes right down to those vertical lines below. So that's pulling me away from his face. And also, I mean, it's picky, but it is portrait creative. I would like to see more of the expression on the kind of ghostly image over there. And then also the curtain on the one side. I get that that's probably what it was in the scene, but again, this is portrait creative and we can make it anything that we want. So the boy has the blue light of the phone. So the curtain wasn't really necessary as a light source, and it is very bright, and it is a particular saturation that just kind of keeps bringing my eye back over there. So I think those are some things that could help the maker take it to the next level.
Andrew?
So, Rachel, you spoke to the vertical lines. I want to speak to the horizontal lines. It's really uncomfortable for me to kind of see this image tilting down, and it makes it hard to kind of keep my eye focused, and just because I'm kind of tilting and I want to see it straighter. I know that's nitpicking, but overall, that your horizontal and vertical lines have a huge impact
They
on
do.
how your image is perceived. For me here, I think a little vignetting overall on the left and right, because the scene is very evenly lit across, and you can tell the maker used lights to accent the bed and the toys in the bed from left to right and all around. I think it draws your focus away and doesn't really give me an idea of where to look exactly. And I'm only looking at the center because there's a blurriness there that I want to figure out, what's going on there. But I think setting up this scene to be, to have your background just a little bit darker and moodier to emphasize the feeling that you're going for would make this a lot stronger.
Yeah. So, I mean, just vignetting, really, right? Yeah. But yeah, it's always an interesting thing for vertical and horizontal lines because I have a crazy eye. I can see when they're like a hair off, and it's a curse. It's literally a curse. But it's the first thing that will draw my eye away, and it's something that's fairly easy to fix in post. So, make sure those lines are straight.
Absolutely. I feel like if you have a crooked horizon line, that's going to pull you out of the 80 every single time.
Right.
And when I was a newer photographer, I had a bride complain that the horizon lines weren't straight. And we went back in and fixed a lot of images. And since then, in post and Lightroom, every wedding, every horizon line is perfectly straight. And that's one of those little details that separates somebody who's a seasoned professional from an amateur. Straight horizon lines, or if you're going to make it not straight, you have to show us that was intentional.
Very intentional, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Got time for another one. So, and I'd love for you guys to talk about this one. Yeah. So just a reminder for those of you at home and here in the audience, this is the Icon Critique sessions here at WPPI. Our judges here are talking about prints that scored 79 or below and how the maker can improve the image to bring those images up into that 80 category, how they can improve technique. And we are in the portrait creative category, which means that composites are allowed. All of the elements had to be photographed by the maker or created by the maker. And so on that note, who wants to get started? Because this is a fun image.
I really commend the maker on the idea behind this, art within art, and utilizing the elements of the paintbrush to kind of insinuate this is a broken painting. You want to look at your lighting overall. For me, it's just an even light straight across the entire thing, which kind of takes me away from the intention behind it. I think something a little bit more of a gradient to focus my eye and attention a little bit more. And watching again these highlights that you have, as I squint here, I have some very distinct highlights in the cracks that I think could have been managed a little bit better, just like it was everywhere else, because it draws me away from the gaze of the subject. But yeah, I mean, the imagination here is definitely there.
Rachel?
I got chills when this image came around. I am absolutely in love with this. And I would encourage the maker, like, please, please, please go reshoot this, because this is one of those things, like, impact, creativity, and originality is something that judges are looking for. And a lot of times people will turn in a client work that's practically perfect and they're like, well, why is it not 100? Like you can't pick out much apart from it, and it doesn't have the storytelling, creativity, originality, and impact. So this concept, I truly believe, is a 90 like concept. But there are things that are pulling it out of this technically. And in addition to the lighting that you spoke of, her eyes are quite dilated. Is that the word? So, I got in there and it hurt the expression a little bit. So just turning up the modeling lights or having them even a bit closer. And then also there's some gold under these cracks. And then I couldn't tell at first. I thought it might be a mirror, but then like there's just kind of a line of gold there and it almost looks like it's part of the image and I couldn't quite understand. So there are a few things that are taking us out of the gold paint. So they're kind of pulling it through. Yeah, there are a few things that are just pulling this out of the range, but I would encourage the maker to redo this, even make a series out of it, like refine this concept. How many times can you do it? Because I think this image could go really far.
I feel like looking at it, the gold is done intentionally, in part to nod to the Japanese tradition of something being broken and then painting it back together with gold paint and making it even more beautiful. For me, and I get that gold in there and why that's there. For me, the expression doesn't match the brokenness of the image. Like I would almost like to see a more tortured look on her face to match the brokenness of the pieces. Like is missing the storytelling for me. But I think the gold is a nod to the Japanese. Yes, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. What's that? Yes, thank you. Someone in the audience is yelling it out. But it's so there's
Sugi, yes.
Sugi. They're starting that process of painting it in and repairing it and making it more beautiful.
And
Yeah.
to that point,
Yeah.
even if it's not a more broken subject, the juxtaposition of a more confident, brighter, happier subject and still being broken, that could
Right.
also add to the storytelling as well.
Yeah, she's just so soft. Yeah, so awesome comments. I love it. Thank you guys so much. Let's do one more. I really feel like I can push you guys a little bit and
Yeah.
do one more. Oh, that's fun too. Okay, that's what's so great about the portrait creative category. Like you never know what you're gonna get. So, Andrew, let's get started with you.
Oh, this is creepy and cool and eerie all at the same time. And takes me into a scene of like Stranger Things, and what's happening. So that's really interesting. I'm kind of in a flow and not sure where to land. I think the obvious thing is land on our subject, but then these other elements in the TV kind of take me away. So I think what I'm looking at here is what's my overall composition and where's my story leading me? Where are my eyes supposed to be drawn? There's just so much in here that I'm not sure where to start first. And then because I'm doing that, I'm having a hard time kind of identifying what the story is. Like, what are we trying to say when we're making imagery like this?
Rachel, you have some thoughts for us?
Absolutely. This would be beautiful in an art gallery. I think it would do well in art competition. The the compositing is not quite on par with this one, although I will commend the author for storytelling and use of color, and they've really got something here. When you look at, if you've ever taken a perspective drawing class and you look at the lines of this TV and where they would meet up in the background, it's not the same place that the lines of the other TV would meet up. And I've had to do this with my own compositing. I will draw it out on paper, take a ruler, print it out on paper, take a ruler, and say, okay, are my lines matching up in the 2-point perspective in both areas? In addition, so his feet, when you start to look at that a little bit, they look like they're floating. So the shadow on the bottom of the feet is not consistent, in addition to the shadowing on the bottom of the jeans. And if you're trying to composite and you're looking at shadows, we would look at the shadow on the TV, and we would know that because that's a real shadow, we want the shadows on the bottom of his pants to be about the same, both in the softness and how dark they are. So really close with this one, great use of storytelling. It's just some of those composition refinements. And I would say for anybody who's looking to get better at compositing specifically, take a drawing class. There Marshall Vandriff has a drawing class. It's $8 online. It's perspective. It is fantastic.
I have to do that.
It's huge.
No, it's really interesting just as sitting here as the host, I always learn something new, and I don't do a whole lot of composites. And so listening to what you're saying, I'm like, oh, I see it. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So one of the best parts of this job is learning from you guys, actually. Andrew, some thoughts on this?
Yeah, I just again to mirror what Rachel said is you just got to watch the shadowing and kind of make it sure it's realistic. Look at all of your light sources, and just think where would the shadow naturally truly fall, to the human eye, and that will help you with the blend of your composite.
That's amazing, you guys. I want to thank you both for your time. I know you're going to be back again. To all of you at home who are taking the time to watch this, thank you so much. Thank you to B&H and to Critiq for sponsoring these critiques that we're doing for the Icon International Awards. It's really been quite an honor to be here and host and talk to amazing people that I'm going to take a drawing course. I've been thinking about it anyway, but we'll be back again, and thank you for watching, and thank you again to B&H and Critiq and to the Icon Awards, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.